Hey everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to TandeWrites. I haven't focused on the rights part of my username in a while or talked about publishing, but it's becoming relevant again as I'm working on a new book and already thinking about the path it's going to take in the future. I think this one is more commercially marketable than my previous work, so I'm going to query it in an attempt to traditionally publish, but self-publishing will always be lingering in the back of my mind. This video is not a list of reasons why I think people should self-publish, it's just a list of reasons why they do, based on my experience and conversations with authors of all publishing pathways. They want full creative control. This for me was the most tempting reason for me to pursue independent publishing. Lots of people have such a specific vision for the end product in mind that they aren't willing to compromise on something like the cover or the title. They want to make decisions that could conflict with how a corporate brand manages traditionally published titles, from commissioning cover arts that matches their taste to writing a 200,000 word debut novel. They can write and publish a 10-book series in a couple of months. They can write and publish a duology over a decade. They can write completely unfiltered and publish content that would make a traditional publisher nervous. Whatever their reasons are, that feeling of full control is appealing. They write faster than traditional publishing can keep up. There are some traditionally published authors who produce multiple books a year and have done so for a large part of their careers, but they are quite uncommon, and the logistics and legalities of maintaining that schedule can create its own set of problems, especially if they are opting to use pen names and maintaining social media. If you self-publish, you have nothing stopping you from rapid releasing and putting out a book whenever feels right to you. They want to keep more of the royalties. Self-publishers do not keep all of the royalties. Amazon and other distributors keep anywhere between 20 to 45% for hosting your book, depending on the format and range of distribution. But keeping what remains from that percentage is a lot more than the average in traditional publishing, which is closer to 10%. Because of the pricing structures self-publishing distributors use, this doesn't always translate to bigger royalty payments, but sometimes it does. There's something to discuss here about how you can be forced to price your book higher to increase your profits and how the higher price can lead to a loss of sales, but that's a conversation topic for another day. They believe self-pub will launch them to tradpub. Millions of books are self-published every year, only a handful of them, a handful that have managed to consistently sell thousands or tens of thousands of copies each month without a publisher's support, might get picked up to become traditionally published. But some of us have this belief that if we work hard and prove that we can do every step of the publishing process ourselves, will make us seem more deserving or more tempting to a publisher. Traditional publishers do pick up successful self-publishers, but it's more because you're a safe bet as you've already taken on most of the costs and are selling well. Self-publishing isn't a launching pad, it's a completely separate career that occasionally attracts attention from other paths. They write a genre that traditional publishing doesn't want. This was another big thing that drew me to self-publishing. There is a notable difference in genres that sell well to different markets. Erotica and the darkest of dark fantasy are the most obvious examples of genres that thrive in self-publishing but make up a minor percentage of the traditionally published market. And books that cross age ranges strangely tend to thrive more independently, such as books that hover on the young adult boundary, despite publishing beginning to take an interest in new adult. And there are trend cycles to genres. Romantasy is thriving right now in traditionally published fiction, so there is lesser interest in most other genres, but there are always exceptions. They didn't want to be rejected anymore. Everyone has a different threshold for rejection, and the rejections I'm focusing on here is queer rejections from an agent when you are initially seeking representation. I am not qualified to comment on rejections from editors or anything later than that in the traditional process. Some people bow out after a dozen rejections because they very quickly realise they can't handle it. Some people exhaust every agent possible for their queries, and the numbers are somewhere in the thousands. My queried agents were close to 100, but some people are tired of waiting for a way through the gate when they can see potential in their stories and are willing to put in the work to get it done themselves. They were intimidated by the traditional process. Circling back to rejections and agents, some people just don't want to go through the very rare chance of acquiring an agent, then the slim possibility of an editor picking up the book, then hoping that the publisher goes through with publishing the book. It can be a multi-year process, and there's no guarantee that the book will hit the shelves. For some authors, they don't have bookstore or bestseller list ambitions, and the DIY process is preferable and works out a lot better for them and their vision for the book. They just want their book on their own shelves. Some authors just want a handful of copies of their book for themselves and family and friends. I self-published my first book when I was 16 to have a copy for myself and to simply say that I had done it. And having the proof in hand showed that I had written a book. Anyone can self-publish. You can self-publish anything you want. Creating copies of books that you just want to exist in physical form is more accessible and affordable than ever. I personally opted for self-publishing for a mix of these reasons. For my most recent book, I knew I was writing a genre that the market wasn't interested in, and it wasn't showing any signs of becoming interested anytime soon. There Will Be Other Summers is a young adult contemporary novel on the shorter side of the expected genre word count, featuring 2 physically disabled main characters, and their relationship is purely platonic, no romance. As I mentioned earlier, romantasy is seemingly dominating the fiction market right now, and horror across all age groups is something that is making a comeback. I originally queried this project to figure out the process in anticipation of a future, more marketable project, and it was difficult to find agents who were open to receiving this genre, so I knew very early on that it would be more difficult to find an editor to take on the book. It would be likely that the book would be shelved and never see the light of day, and this story was so important to me that I was happy to put in the work to make it happen one way or another. It's also important to me to have full creative control with my books, especially ones where I know the market isn't interested and the chance of them reaching readers traditionally is borderline non-existent. If I'm going to do it all myself, I want to go all out with the features that Ingram Spark will give me. So Paper Forest and There Will Be Other Summers have duplex printing, so I can have images inside the cover, letting me feature specific quotes and have my author photo in full colour. Paper Forest would be expensive for a traditional publisher to print, as it has these black pages separating the chapters, and it's printed on that beautiful blinding white paper associated with self-published books to enhance the contrast. Anytime a handwritten note or letter is mentioned in There Will Be Other Summers, I could include an image of it, and I know these mixed media elements are something publishers have been cutting down from, specifically from Kate Ancrum's books. I got to commission the cover art myself. I got to illustrate and design another myself. I could do the typography and the font choices and the little design that separates scenes. I have paperbacks and hardcovers and ebooks and large prints and audiobooks. This is the book of my heart, and if I was going to force it out into the world, it was going to look exactly how I wanted it to. In summary, self-publishing is a valid publishing path, but it is a lot of work, and very little of that work is writing the books. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!